Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's time for one of our regular Sunday videos, Games of the Week, where I look ahead at the upcoming week in the NHL and pick out which games I think are going to be the best and most exciting to watch. So we got quite a pretty good week coming up here in the NHL. Some really decent rivalries are going to be matching up this week. So there's certainly a number of great games to look at. Before we begin, I just ask that you please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button if you haven't yet. Both of those things help out so much and are greatly appreciated. But let's take a look at this week and talk about some of the best games. So here we go. Starting on Sunday, today, noontime game, NBC. Sunday afternoon, we've got the Capitals versus the Penguins. That is going to be a heck of a matchup. It's Pens Caps. It's always great when these two teams play each other. Really strong rivalry, a lot of hatred between the teams. That's always a fun matchup to watch, and I don't think that's going to be any different this year. I mean, they're playing even more than they normally do this year, so it's going to be really exciting. Moving on now to Monday the 18th. I've got a couple games. We've got the Bruins versus the Islanders. That game, I believe, is at 5 p.m. And that's just two of the better teams in the East Division. I mean, both teams started their season with wins. I think those are two teams that are going to be fighting for playoff position all season long. And they're going to play big, important games against each other. And I know it's way too early in the season to be talking about standings, but those are just going to be important games and important 2 points on the line every time those two teams meet up. So I think Isles Bruins is going to be a really good one. And then later that night, we've got the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames. And this was one of the, potential rivalries that I talked about in my video on rivalries that could reignite this season. This has been a matchup that's been a little quiet the last few years as a lot of the attention is turned to Calgary versus Edmonton, and rightfully so. But this is a matchup that I think could bring us some really, really good games this season and some really heated games. Again, that's a rivalry I think that's really going to pick up with the Canadian division this year. So Vancouver versus Calgary, first time meeting this year. I think it's going to be a heck of a matchup. It's going to be an important game because of, these teams fighting for playoff spots and for with those points on the line. I'm expecting a really, really good one there between the Canucks and the Flames. Moving on now to the 19th, which is Tuesday. I've got the New Jersey Devils and New York Rangers. Now, that might be a little bit of a surprise to people, but every time these two teams play, it tends to be a really heated matchup. I know the Devils aren't really expected to be very good this year. The Rangers got off to a really tough start. We'll see what they can do going forward, but it doesn't matter where these two teams are in the standings at all. When they play each other, it's an absolute, just rivalry feel to it. And they really do not like each other at all, and they play very physical games against each other. So I'm expecting that to continue this year, and that Devils-Rangers game on the 19th should be a lot of fun. Also on the 19th, the Capitals and Penguins play again. Obviously, they play on Sunday. They play again on Tuesday. I will be live for that Caps-Pens game on Tuesday. That's going to be a fun one. Second game in a row against each other. All the rivalry stuff I mentioned when I talked about that matchup the first time certainly is going to apply for this one. So that will be a really, really fun game. Wednesday the 20th. Man, am I excited for this one. The Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs up in the North Division. Man, talk about offense. This game I was talking about on my show last night. Could end up easily 7-5. This is a game I'm certainly looking at to have a lot of goals, ton of offensive firepower on both teams. You've got McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Puljujarvi, Yamamoto. All the firepower on the Oilers going up against Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Hyman, all the offensive firepower on the Toronto Maple Leafs. It is going to be an absolutely fantastic game. I expect a very fast-paced, high-scoring game, and I will be live for that game as well on Wednesday. That one is going to be a whole lot of fun between the Oilers and the Leafs. Moving on now to Thursday the 21st. This is going to be a fun one. We've got the Flyers versus the Bruins. I mean, it's Boston, Philadelphia. They're in the same division this year. They're expected to be two of the better teams in that East division. So when they play each other, it's going to be a big matchup with important points on the line and playoff positioning on the line. And it may be early in the season, but I expect these two teams to kick it off with a great game. Now, it certainly isn't Broad Street Bullies versus Big Bad Bruins anymore like it was back in the 70s, but there's still a little bit of rivalry between these teams, and I think that's going to really pick up this year because they are in the same division and for the first time in a long time, and because they are going to be playing each other so much. So look for them to kick off the season with a bang against each other on the 21st. We also have Tampa Bay versus Columbus on Thursday, and that's always a fun matchup. There's just something about when those two teams play. I think the recent playoff history has a lot to do with it. For sure, but it's just really an intriguing matchup to me, and you have all the offensive firepower of the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the shutdown defense of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And Columbus pulled off that huge upset in the playoffs a couple years ago. Then the Lightning got their revenge last year and went on to win the Cup. It's just always such a fun matchup when these two teams play. So I'm going to be really interested in seeing how that one goes. Moving on now to Friday the 22nd, we've got the Oilers versus the Leafs playing again on Friday the 22nd. And man, everything I said about that first matchup applies to the second one. That is going to be an absolutely phenomenal game. Cannot wait to see those two teams play each other, and we get them a couple of times this week. And then we have Nashville versus Dallas, and this is a real Central Division rivalry, one that isn't a new thing this year. Dallas and Nashville have been in the same division for a while now, and this is one that's carrying over from the normal Central Division into this year's Central Division. And it also happens to be the Dallas Stars' first game. Obviously, their beginning of their season got delayed because of the COVID outbreak there. They had 17 players that tested positive, and so they had to wait a couple weeks to get their season going, but their first game is going to be the 22nd against Nashville. Great matchup for a first game. Going to be a lot of fun to watch, and we'll see how Dallas does coming out of the gate. And finally, now that brings us to Saturday the 23rd, the last day for this week, and we've got Philadelphia versus Boston again, and Tampa Bay versus Columbus again, just like on Thursday. Those two teams, play Thursday, have Friday off, and then play again or those four teams, I should say, the two matchups, play Thursday, have Friday off, and then play again on Saturday. And everything I said about the first matchups applies to the second. They're just fun matchups to watch, and big points on the line, and interesting games between those two teams anytime they play. So those are my games of the week for this week. We have a lot of fantastic matchups. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And, as you can see, there's still quite a few rivalries that are going to be kicking off this week. We've got Washington and Pittsburgh for the first time. We've got Boston versus Philly. We've got the Devils versus the Rangers. We've got Dallas and Nashville. And then there's going to be some really, interesting, I think the most chaotic offensive game that we could see all week is going to be that Oilers-Leafs matchup, and we get them twice this week, and I just think they're going to be really high-scoring games with a ton of offensive firepower on each side. So those are my top games for this week. I'll be checking out as many of these as I can. I'll I know for a fact I'll be streaming a few of these games, and going to get a good number of streams in this week. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store and donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.